Hey, what's going on? It's the Fantasy Coaches Podcast, and your host today, once again, is Coach Jibs. I'm doing well, guys. I just want to let you guys know that. But Steve, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I miss my host duties, bro, but it's all good. It's all good. I like taking a break off and maybe just relax and just talk football without issues, man. So I'm thrilled to get this football talk going on today.
Well, I'm glad to have your smart, witty takes and hot analysis. But guys, we have a pretty special guest tonight. It's Jeremy from the FTN. How we doing, big fella?
I'm doing all right. Doing the best I can. All right. How about you?
I'm fantastic, brother. I'm fantastic. But I guess let's cut the chitter chat and let's get to the main topic. Let's get to the news first. But Blaine Gabbert resigns with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, guys. I don't know if you want to even mention that, but
Most of these fantasy news things were most of it's irrelevant besides the extensions, I guess. But I had to put it in there anyway, just so people know.
What if Tom Brady retires after he realizes Bruce Arians gone? He's just like, actually, April Fools, I'm out.
That would be the greatest thing ever, but not for my fantasy teams. But as a Dolphins fan, I'd love to have him retire once again.
Yeah,
have drinking that all over again.
He just realizes, never mind. I'm out.
And more relevant news: Derek Gore, Antoine Wesley signed their franchise tenders. Demir Bird signs with the Atlanta Falcons, who need a wide receiver desperately. 2 extensions. Brandon Cook signs a 2-year extension with Houston. Stephon Diggs signs a massive 4-year extension with Buffalo. So wide receivers, once again, guys, getting their money this offseason. Brandon Cooks kind of gets some stability in a bad situation, but I'm glad for that, man. Any takes on the 2 fellows, guys?
Brandon Cooks is definitely going to stay. I mean, it was kind of nice. Maybe he was going to a new team, but that's kind of dead. I mean, nice low end wide receiver too, probably for the next few seasons. And Diggs, I mean, you're going to be happy that you have Brandon Cooks, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs for the next 4 years at least, or 5 years, I guess. So can't complain with that.
Yeah, I like it all. I mean, Demir Bird could be a good dart throw. I mean, Atlanta doesn't really have anything, and I doubt they're going to draft 4 wide receivers in the draft. So I'm sure he'll get a shot to contribute. He's a good, probably late round throw or a pretty cheap acquirable player that could have some high upside to it. I agree with Steve. Cooks is just going to be what he's always been, that wide receiver 2, middling kind of player that's really valuable to you at times and sometimes just kind of meh. And yeah, Diggs paired with Allen is definitely something you are hopeful for if you have either of those guys on your fantasy team. So
I'm a fan of both of them, brother. I'm a fan of both of them. But let's get off these old guys and get into some of the new names, the new young guns, the rookie running backs, guys.
Old guys are needed, though,
They are there. That's what kind of brings stability to your dynasty rosters. But this is their time. This is the young boys, and we're gonna start with Bryce Hall. Let me get my reading glasses on, guys. 21 stats. 253 carries, 1,417 yards, 20 touchdowns, 36 receptions, 300 yards, 302 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's about 5'11", 217 pounds, and he ran a 4.39. You both have him number 1, so obviously there's some great consistency around here, and I've been hearing his name all throughout the dynasty community. People are kind of selling some of the last year's commodities over say Bryce Hall versus Najee Harris. Bryce Hall is a little bit younger. Najee Harris is in his situation, but people are kind of moving over Najee Harris for Bryce Hall. So you guys want to tell me why?
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. So with Bryce Hall, I mean, I like both obviously running backs, but Bryce Hall is obviously, a little bit younger there, and he's got that, 3-down ability to his game. Somebody who his footwork, his vision, is fantastic. He isn't like a speedster, but he's got speed to him for sure. And he's someone who's just kind of dominated the football world over the last 2 seasons. I mean, 40 touchdowns last 2 years. It's crazy. And, this past season, he was able to take a jump in the passing game, which, always love to see that, obviously, for PPR fans and everything like that. But he's just someone that can do a lot with the ball in his hands, whether it's, running over defender, not always, not as much, but he can definitely make them miss very quickly. And he's someone who is going to likely be the 101 in a lot of fantasy drafts this year, unless something crazy happens where one of these other guys lands into the ultimate situation. But Bryce Hall he's the best running back in this class.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Steve said. I think a lot of the speed issue that a lot of people have, which is why so many people were surprised with this 4.3, is actually kind of like just a processing / vision type thing. Because if you watch a lot of it, some of these guys you're breaking down, some of the guys that I follow and stuff, like really getting into Bryce Hall, that he kind of sometimes he doesn't hit holes at a full speed that you would like him to. Like the hole's there, it's clear and it's obvious, and he kind of like second guesses himself at times. So it's a little bit worrisome there. But for me, he's the clear cut number one. I mean, he's had 3, I believe it's 3 seasons of, let me double check. Sorry, get that. Yeah, no, 2. So 2 seasons of 20 plus touchdowns, 2 seasons of 14 plus 100 yards. He is a clear workhorse for Iowa. He was kind of how that offense ran. So he's ready to step into that role. He's got everything you're asking for. And like we saw at the 40, he has that breakaway speed. He's shown it a couple times on film, but it's just like those little nuances in his game that he's going to have to work on. But I think at the NFL level, a little bit better coaching, maybe he lands in a team with a little bit better offensive line, a good scheme, that he could definitely be more valuable than possibly Najee Harris, because we don't know what Najee Harris is going to be this year. I was never a big Najee guy last year. But like his situation was really good with Ben Roethlisberger early on with the PPR stuff, like the dump offs, etc. With Trubisky there now, like, is that going to be the same, or how's that offense going to look? So for me, if you're comparing the two, I personally prefer Bryce Hall, but I think he's definitely worth the hype being 1-1
for sure.
Okay, well, I don't have any crappy teams, so I don't have no.
I got a couple, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm going to say I intentionally had crappy teams to get him. That was my whole plan. It wasn't, but it makes me feel better.
Me too.
I'll definitely feel better. Well, let's get into the next guy, fellas. Kenneth Walker, 2021 stats. He had 263 carries for, 1,636 yards, 18 touchdowns, 13 catches for 89 yards and 1 touchdown. 5'9", 211 pounds, ran a 4.38. Consensus number 2 for both you guys. This guy looks like a monster. Doesn't really do much in the receiving game, so I guess that's kind of like a ping against him and Bryce Hall. But Jeremy, like, give me some analysis on this guy. Like, I'm Joe Football. I don't know nothing about these guys. You guys got to give me all the.
Sure doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, Kenneth Walker, he's a transfer from Wake Forest to Michigan State. He really exploded. Literally, his first carry was a 75-yard touchdown run on the first play for Michigan State. So he literally just from day one was explosive for this offense. And I think there's a lot of knock, like you had mentioned, to his passing game work. And he might not get that at the NFL level, which is kind of a knock for some of these fantasy guys, especially in PPR leagues. But I don't think he's not capable. I think it just comes down to the Michigan State offense. They didn't really use the running backs in the passing game. And he was just so dominant. I mean, he was ripping off like explosive run after explosive run. I mean, he had 46 carries of 10 plus yards, 30 of 15 plus yards. So with a long of 94 yards. So like he was just so explosive that I feel like sometimes maybe it was just such a rotation. Like they didn't keep him in there all the time. So there's some of that. I really like his game. There's definitely some like nuances that he's going to have to work on, but I think in the right landing spot, he's definitely firmly number 2 for me. I do like Isaiah Spiller, but like I think he's pretty firmly at 2. I don't think he'll catch 1. I think Bryce Hall's just a much better overall back for me, but he's a firm number 2 for me.
Steve, you still your points?
No, I mean, yeah, Jeremy said a lot of great things about him. I mean, there's not much more I could say. I mean, if people are wondering why exactly he's one stop below for me personally, is that with Bryce Hall, he has that 3-down ability. I don't know if I 100% trust Kenneth Walker to be a 3-down player. I mean, he has very similar, running styles as Bryce Hall to some extent. One thing I love about him that he didn't fumble once in college. 263 carries this year, no fumbles. That's pretty impressive to me, especially for a college player. He's someone who can fight for extra yards, someone who can make defenders miss. And I honestly, him running that 4.38 somewhat surprised me a little bit. I didn't think he was going to run as well as that, but he's definitely someone that I think if he were to end up in the ultimate situation, he could possibly jump Bryce Hall, but it's less than likely. But you'd be pretty happy getting him in this year's draft if you're looking for a running back, especially if more than likely he's probably going to end up in that 5 to 7 range. You should be pretty happy if you get a guy like Kenneth Walker. He's going to be pretty good for the NFL.
I just did a mock draft on Monday over the weekend, and I had him falling in the second round as a slight homer pick, but no, like a NFL mock draft. Sorry, should have clarified that. I had him falling in the second round.
Having heart attacks over here.
Yeah, I had him falling in the second round, but I had him going to the Bills, and I think if he lands there, like, good luck touching him at 1.5. I think he instantly jumps up with Bryce Hall. Just because of landing spot and what it's going to do to push that up there. It's a little bit of a homer pick, but I just don't know how the NFL is going to value these running backs because this class is kind of down. And like Walker, he exploded this year, and before that, he didn't have a 1,000-yard season. I mean, he had 800 last year, but there's a lot of not great hype with Walker. Like, a lot of people like him, and there's people who don't, and that's how does the NFL view him. So depending on that could tell us a lot too for what's going to happen with him. But I just really think the landing spot's key, like you'd said, Steve. Like, in a prime landing spot, I think Walker could push up to being ahead of even some of these wide receivers.
Oh, damn. Kenneth Walker's a bad man. A bad man.
Yeah, turn on some of the highlights. He put some people out of their shoes, and it's like one-on-one. It's pretty nasty that what Walker can do.
We're going to get into Isaiah Spiller. That's a name I actually heard, guys. So, kudos to me. But
for good reason.
21 was pretty lackluster compared to the first two running backs. 179 carries for 1,011 yards, 6 touchdowns, 25 receptions for 189 and 1 touchdown. 6 foot tall, 217 pounds. Didn't run the 40-yard dash. You could both have him at consensus number 3. So, guys, I'm looking at the stats right now. It doesn't really blare off to me. Was he injured? Give me the gist on that first.
You mean?
Was
he injured last year, or that's what his production was?
That's his production.
That's just his production.
He split time with Kennedy Brooks.
Okay,
so I think it was Kennedy. No, that was Oklahoma, wasn't it? No, maybe it was in Texas. I'm not sure. He split.
I will find out. Let's see.
Yeah, he split time with somebody. I thought it was Kennedy Brooks. I could be wrong.
It was Devon.
Oh, that's who it was. Kennedy Brooks is Oklahoma.
Arsky, whatever. How you ever say it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the kid that he split time with is next year. But he was a very talented running back as well, and they just kind of split time. It was a very disappointing year, though. Kind of a lot of people had the same response that you did. Like, he only had 1,000 yards. He was expected to be a lot better this year, but he did kind of get outplayed by the incoming running back. So there's definitely some more concern to Isaiah Spiller, but he did have 3 years of almost 1,000 yards. So there's definitely talent there, and he's a little bit more of a receiving back. He had 20-plus receptions in every year in college. So he has that receiving upside. He's still a little bit raw. There's a lot of kind of some nuances in his game that aren't great. So he's really kind of fallen. But he was arguably, some people had him as the top running back coming into 2021. So there's talent there. It just kind of was a type season.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy said it pretty good. I mean, he has some talent to him. There were some concerns. I know I didn't put a 40-yard dash, but I did believe he ran his pro day at a 4.63, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he wasn't super fast.
Yeah, that's the big kicker. He's going to be one of those, he kind of reminds me of a Damian Harris type kind of individual. He's got a lot of he's got the size and power to him. I mean, he's someone who was pretty good in college overall. For a big guy, he can make defenders miss, which I kind of like. He's got some burst, through the holes there. The only thing, he did have some of a fumbling problem in college, and that speed. I don't know if that's going to be something that Like I could see him being a Damian Harris guy at best, and I don't know if I see the upside where he's gonna be, like a top 5 fantasy running back for a future. I don't see that in this game. I see he could end up with a pretty decent high floor possibility, like kind of like a Damian Harris. So he's solid. I mean, he needs a team to kind of use him the right way, kind of to get his best abilities on the field. So.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of even like Nyheim Hines. I know that's not like an exciting name, but like he could be like that third down kind of like he can fill in and he can do well in the run game. But like I feel like his forte in the NFL may become like a receiving back / a passing down type guy.
Smells like the Eagles will pick him. just for the hell of it. They love doing that. Oh Lord.
Yeah, I feel like he's a compliment back, like even like Tampa, somebody who has like a workhorse first and second down type guy, and he's going to be a fill-in that could turn into a workhorse, but like probably leans more towards as like a third down / spell type back.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Agree with that.
Okay, well, let's get into. Ooh, look at some differences over here. Finally, you guys don't agree on anything. We're gonna get to Rachaad White. 2021 stats: he had 182 carries, 1,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 43 receptions, 456 yards, 1 touchdown. 6 foot tall, 214 pounds, 40-yard dash, 4.48. Jeremy, you had him at a 4, and Steve, you had him at your number 6. Steve, we're gonna go with the haters first, and tell me why you're hating on him, or why you're just not cutting him out of slack.
I mean, he's in my top 10. If I would have told you he was outside my top 10, I would really be hating on him. Honestly, I mean, I don't have too much to say. For me, it's the pass protection. That's my biggest key. I thought his pass protection was not fun to watch on film. Honestly, there was way too many times where he missed picking up the blitz correctly. And for me, when it comes to a running back, and especially for the NFL, I'm sure keys into this pretty well, is they need someone who can pass block. That's obviously a big key factor, because these quarterbacks get paid a lot of money to do a lot of things on there. And he had minimal time as a full-time starter. I don't know if he's someone that can handle all 3 downs kind of a workload, but he's got speed to his game there. He's a good pass catcher, not pass blocker, but he's someone who can do things with his speed on the field, especially if you get the ball in his hand. He's pretty good in the open field there. He's got great acceleration. He's pretty patient behind the line, but for me, I don't know if I see him actually being that full-time workload guy. But I do like him still. I mean, he's only at 6 for me. So,
Jeremy, give me your case against.
So with Rachaad White, it's kind of just like you're shooting upside here. I feel like this class gets really there's a lot of differentiation depending on the running backs your style you prefer. Once you get down into these numbers, I think after the big 3, it could really go any way, shape, or form. I like the speed that he brings. I like the upside that's there. He has good size to be a third down back, or a 3 down back. Sorry, not third down back. And he had 619 yards after contact last year, which is a pretty good number. He also had 44 missed tackles, which is pretty high. And he just kind of has like that nuance in his game. Like he has that pass catching upside. He has the running ability. He has good vision. And he's pretty good at like making people miss in the open field. So there's a lot of like physical traits that are there. He might not be as polished as some of these other guys, but I just really like the upside. And I think that landing spot's going to be important once we get into talking like these guys of like 4 to 10, like that's really going to play it out and see how they're used. But in the proper role, I think that Rachaad White has just a lot of upside. So that's where I'm shooting here, and that's why I have him at 4. I just think that he could become a 3-down back if given the chance.
I like that. The guy seems like he like the way he's built, the statisticals, like he can be like a guy who could produce in the NFL, I believe.
Yeah, but, there's just like nuances, like one thing, he like runs upright a lot, like he doesn't really get a good lean, so like sometimes he can get stuffed, so like kind of just like there's little things. It's just like what's gonna happen with it, really how he develops.
Pieces. He's got to put it together. Get him a good RBs coach. Set him aside. Let's get into the next guy. Samir White. 160 carries for 856 yards and 11 touchdowns. He had 9 receptions, 75 yards. Didn't get a touchdown, but he's 6 foot tall, 214 pounds. He has a 40-yard dash of 4.4. And some more differences. Like he's a little bit lower for you guys. Jeremy, you have number 7, and Steve, you have at number 8.
I think that shows our differences in a lot of these running backs, because in reality he's our RB5 on this combined list, and he's coming up 7 and 8. So
you guys might like him for some specific qualities, but I'll let you go first, Steve, on this one.
All right. It's too bad we don't have Coach John here. Him and Jeremy had some.
He's a big fan.
He had some similarities to their thing until it got to the end. So, but Coach John will be back next week, guys. So Samir White, he's a very physical runner, downhill runner, explosive kind of guy. Goes in between the tackles. Someone who can kind of drag defenders with him. And he's got enough agility to make defenders miss, even though he's more of that physical kind of well-being. He's got a history though of injuries. I mean, 2 torn ACLs over his career already at this point. For me, it's durability that is the big issue, and that's why he's kind of down here at that 8 range for me, where I think he has upside to his game there. But again, it comes with concern because of the durability issues that does come with his game. But if again, a lot of these guys are landing in the right situation, he gets the opportunity. He could be something good. He might be just a committee guy, though. He might not ever reach that potential of his upside in his game, because they might not want to work him on the offense here. So,
very interesting. Jeremy, what you got from me?
Fun fact: he has one of the coolest nicknames, Zeus. So. That's a pretty sweet nickname. But yeah, the injuries are what really killed his career, unfortunately. He was a 5-star recruit out of high school. I mean, he was talked about as possibly the top running back in this class entering their collegiate career. Like, the talent is absurd with Samir White. He has really good vision. He has good speed. He has the power. He doesn't necessarily get used in the passing game. And the question comes, was it just because James Cook is better, or is it because he's just bad? You know what I mean? Like, Cook is such a good receiver at Georgia that, like, did they just use it because he was so good and they wanted to get James Cook touches because Samir White's just a better runner than James Cook? So, like, you couldn't see giving Cook options there. So it's an arguable debate. I think Samir White is got a ton of upside, like Steve said, and it's just going to come down to injuries. Can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, he's definitely a dark horse to be a very productive NFL running back in, like Steve said, the right situation. And he could be even if as a committee back, he's not going to be as good as Nick Chubb, but like he could have that value, where he's a useful fantasy asset on first and second down, scores a lot of touchdowns. Like, he got the ball all the time on the goal line in Georgia. So, like, he could be that guy, that Damian Harris role, where he's a first and second down almost bruiser, but he gets you those points from touchdowns or just busting a big run here or there. So I think there's going to be value. I'm definitely interested to see landing spot, and I think he could move up from 7 for me, depending on that.
Okay, so that's something to watch out for, in my opinion. And like, I think that's a valid point with guys with the Georgia. Plays at Georgia, like Georgia produces this elite talent, so like he doesn't need to be on the field as often as he needs to be, but it could be also a danger in our eyes. And James Cook, back to back. Speaking of the goddamn devil. His teammate, guys, 115 carries, 728 yards, 7 touchdowns, 27 receptions, 284 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's 5'11". Just under 200 pounds at 199. He ran a 4.42. And Jeremy likes him a little bit better than Steve. So, Jeremy, can you get the first word on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I love him. He is a little bit higher. I really just have him higher because I think the NFL values him a little bit higher than I do. I also think for fantasy, he probably is a little bit more of a option to get you points right away because of the receiving upside. I think that, like I had mentioned earlier, with Samir White, like, he's a pure runner, where that's not necessarily translates to fantasy points. Like, James Cook's game translates to fantasy points. You get that receiving side in PPR leagues. He also has the ability to run the ball. I mean, you see it. I mean, he had 700 yards on the ground, and Georgia usually aids in that because they usually have a good offensive line and a good run game in general. So, but there's still things to like about him on the running side of it as well as the receiving side. He just seems complete. I don't know if he's going to be like a workhorse back at the NFL. He's a little undersized for that. But I just think that the passing upside, that's where he's going to probably find his way into the NFL right away. And we've seen it with guys like Nyheim Hines. You know, you saw Kenny Gainwell was kind of like a receiving guy every now and then, gets a touch here or there. Let's think who else is out there that's kind of that role. James White, like guys like that are just good. Jalen Richard, you know, they have like these small roles, but they actually become good for fantasy because they get that PPR upside and they're getting those dumps out. JD McKissick, you know, I'm not saying that that's like all he's going to be, but like there's value there. And I think James Cook has a more likelihood to have that immediate PPR value than Samir White would. And for example, because I have him back to back. So that's the only reason he's over it, is I just think there's initial value there from James Cook versus where Samir White might not have as much value to do unless he gets the perfect situation. He's not going to be like a high fantasy producer.
I agree with your point right there. Immediate impact, Steve. So what's some of the knocks on him besides stuff that Jeremy mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I have him one spot lower than his teammate. To me, I don't believe in his ability to ever be that workhorse back personally. He's had durability issues over his career in college. And I mean, his game could be very interesting if, again, put in the right offensive scheme. And I think that's key for James Cook. You know, he needs to be in a system where they're going to use him in the way that works best for him. He's able to kind of be used all over the field, which is really interesting. But I just don't see him ever being a guy who's going to carry the workload and be like a 200 carry running back in this NFL. And the upside to me just isn't there enough. Again, durability issues, just in general sense of his ability to be a 3-down back. He's going to probably be a nice complement. Like Jeremy said, he named a lot of great pass catching running backs, and I think he could fit into that mold. But I don't know if he's ever going to be that workhorse back that ends up being an RB1. Like Samir White, I could see him being an RB1. I don't know if I see James Cook ever being an RB1.
Okay, I get you. But I'm looking at his profile picture on your slide, and he looks like Dalvin Cook and James White. So James Cook, I like that. But it doesn't mean he's going to get my pick in some of these drafts upcoming. Jerome Ford, so, whoa.
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah, whoa.
I'm like I'm going to dub myself a low-end James Ford hater.
Get him off the show. You gotta go, Jeremy. You gotta go.
All right. It was nice being
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you in a bit, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'll just sit here quietly. I'll listen. Maybe he can convince me.
I want you to explode on him once he was done. But 2021 stats. 1,319 yards, 19 touchdowns, 21 receptions for 220 yards, 1 touchdown. He's 5'10", 210 pounds. He ran a 4.46. The little debate we had, or I guess the little mentions we had before, Steve has him number 4. Jeremy is outside a top 10. So, Steve,
maybe it's 11.
Floor is yours first.
Yeah, so with Jerome Ford, I'm a big fan of his game. Watching it on film, I was very impressed. And I know, listening to other analysts in the industry and just listening to other people that I'm friends with, that there's a lot of up and down viewpoints on Jerome Ford. Some people love him as a nice sleeper, and some people are just completely off of him. But I'm a big fan of his game, honestly. I mean, he was someone he was in Alabama first 2 years of his career. Obviously, when you're in Alabama, that they bring in good talent, and he shows that he had good talent. But unfortunately, he was in that logjam with a billion other running backs who are now in the NFL that we're using in fantasy, like Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, Damian Harris, like a lot of these running backs, Najee Harris, like he just never got that chance to show his worth. So he went to Cincinnati, and so his first year there was okay. And then this year he kind of exploded. And he was part of the reason why Cincinnati made it to the national championship. I mean, just someone who knows how to find the hole, someone who can show that he can handle a bigger workload. Someone who's sturdy, will fight for every yard. I think he has that second gear to get into the secondary. He's a solid pass catcher. He needs to work on his pass blocking, unfortunately, but he's someone that can be used in all phases of the game. And I'd be really excited to find out where he actually lands in the NFL, because I'm thrilled to get him right now. I think I did a rookie draft like a couple weeks ago. I got him in the 3rd round. I feel like it's a steal, but if he lands in the right situation, wouldn't be surprised if he's a mid-round 2 player.
Interesting. Ooh. So the pressure cooker has been cooking. Jeremy, what you got for me? Why so low?
So I kind of don't. This sounds counterproductive because I like Kenneth Walker, but like sometimes I don't love the having to transfer to get production. I understand it happens, and we saw it. Like Joe Burrow is really good. We've seen other players do that. And I know Alabama's a different story because there's, like you said, Steve, like 1,000 good running backs that always go to Alabama. But I just feel like at times, like I was surprised he ran as fast as he did. I mean, you see explosiveness and you see speed on film. But when he ran the 4.4, I was a little surprised. But I just don't know if, like, at times he doesn't seem like he plays the game fast enough. Like, it sometimes takes him a second to process this. But then at other times, he, like, makes these lateral moves, and the agility that's there is just, like, off the charts. And you're like, wow, this guy he's got great physical talent. So the question just becomes for me is, like, it seems like he was incomplete with his game. Like, at times he looks really good. At other times he's just like, what are you doing? So for me, I just didn't like love it. And like Steve said, the pass blocking is really bad. And sometimes you watch some of the plays with Cincinnati, like he was just hitting wide open holes. Cincinnati did really well with blocking, just schemes in general. So it's good that he hit that hole, and it's great. And he gets to the second level, he makes guys miss. But I don't know why. I just don't necessarily love him. I probably should have him higher. Like I was just like scrolling through again some highlights of it, and I'm kind of like, all right, maybe I am too low on him. And I might have to reassess that because, like, a lot of these rankings I made a while back, and more has come out with Jerome Ford. And like Steve said, there's a lot of talk of people liking him and not. There's just something about his game that, like, I like it at times, but it just seems like he's so inconsistent, and I don't know. I feel like he looked a lot like what Jerome Dokes did last year, and I just feel like we saw what happened with him. So it's kind of like, but I don't know. I just ain't feeling him, to be honest.
Nothing wrong with that. Like something's is off. That's it. Like you can't put your eye on it, but something's off.
Yeah, I might be wrong. I could be completely wrong, and Steve could be right. And like next year, if you guys have me back on, you can be like, "See, Steve's smarter than me." And I would.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, there's some chips going along here. So we'll get into Kevin Harris. He had 152 carries for 660 yards, 4 touchdowns, 11 catches for 89 yards. He's 5'10", 221 pounds, 40-yard dash. He pulled a hamstring, unfortunately. So just like on the opposite end of the spectrum, Jeremy has him 5 in his rankings. Steve has him outside the top 10. So instead of giving the flowers first, Steve, go ahead. Tell me why you're lower on Kevin Harris than Jeremy is.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't wait to hear Jeremy's take because I'm pretty sure I have Kevin Harris outside my top 20. So I'm really excited to hear his takes because I didn't obviously enough time to go back and watch it again. So maybe Jeremy could help me out with that when the time comes here. But to me, the film just never was really that good to me. Honestly, I feel like there's things that he needed to kind of work on the offense there. And I mean, he's got decent vision. His pass protection kind of, for me, was a big struggle to watch. There's some concerns that I feel like he kind of lost his workhorse status as the college career went on. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he split time this year after kind of doing more the year before. And I just want to pull it up real quick as I'm getting this here. Yeah, it's like, he had, in a COVID season, he had 185 yards and 1,100 yards. And then this year he kind of, 152 yards and 600 yards. Like, just for me, there was questions why his production fell that greatly over a season here now. I know maybe I didn't see anything about an injury. Maybe Jeremy might know about that, but to me, there's just something there that really just turned me off over watching his film and just what situation that went through his career at South Carolina. So,
okay, so there's some flags there for you, of course. Jeremy, is a go right here, like all green light go?
Oh, it's green light go. I'm taking Kevin Harris way higher than anybody else will. So, Steve, there was an injury because I had the same concerns when I restarted to go through all these guys early in December. I actually posted something because I loved Kevin Harris last year. I was so high on him. I had him in Devy leagues. I was grabbing him everywhere I could because the 2020 tape looks really good. He's super explosive. He has the speed. He outruns. There's a clip against Purdue. He just literally outruns the whole defense, just hits a hole and it's just gone. And this guy's 220 pounds and just chugging it. And he's just gone. He's everything that you want in this big back. And then what happened was he had a back injury in the offseason and he had surgery on it. And so his return to the field, he wasn't really 100% until almost their bowl game. He was just kind of not really there. So his 2021 tape, I will say, was kind of you watch it, it's kind of meh. But his 2020 season, you had mentioned, he just was really explosive. He looked good. He did well in even the receiving game. There's a nice clip against Florida. He runs this good angle route, makes a catch, and scores a touchdown. And then you see some other ones where he does well as well, just as swing plays. But he has this explosiveness still to him. He has a lot of burst, big plays. There's another one, 45 yards against LSU off the corner. He has speed, and it was all there in 2020. But 2021, like I said, the back injury. If you saw the UNC game, which he was pretty dominant in, that's Kevin Harris. That's probably who you're going to get if he's healthy. So that's the question. Can he stay healthy? Is he there? There's just a lot of power to his game, as well as speed. I think he's just going under the radar because of, Steve said, nobody really knew about this back injury. I had no idea. I'm why did he lose this role? Why did he split with Samir White or whatever? That makes no sense. He was so good in 2020. What happened? So then, like I said, when I dug a little deeper, I got an answer on Twitter too from somebody who follows South Carolina, and that's what it was. And then I did more research and found the articles on it. He did actually have a back injury, and he came out and said he just never felt 100%. And I could see it, a back injury for running back that could be pretty crucial. So I just see a 3-down back. There's the ability to be a 3-down back. He has the size, he has the speed. His vision, like you said, it's good. At times it's not. But there's the upside there to be a full workhorse. And I'm just going and hoping on the 2020 tape that that's what he's going to be at the NFL level. And the 2020 was just a fluke year because he was injured and didn't get that. He wasn't 100%. We've seen it with other players that get injured that were kind of oh, they have a bad year. And it was because they didn't feel 100%. So it's more of I just really like what he had. And I think that there's a lot of upside there. To him. And I just liked his 2020 tape so much that I'm keying in on the injury and hoping that that's what he's going to be is the 2020 tape, not the 2021 Kevin Harris.
Seems like a nice little lottery gold mine pick right there.
Yeah, and the value's there. I mean, I don't know if the draft's going to drive it up, but you can get him in the 4th round. He is fairly cheap. Like Steve said, most people have him even sleeper, I don't even think he's in the top 400 on their ADP. People don't even know he exists half the time. Yes. So I just think that there's a lot. I think the draft will tell. I mean, if they draft him in kind of like Kylan Hill. I was super high on Kylan Hill last year. Then he went in the 7th round, and I'm kind of all right, I probably missed something / I don't know what's really going to happen here. So maybe I just fell in love and it's too much of a crush, and I should take my crush goggles off and listen to Steve, but I don't know. I just really like Kevin Harris.
I had that same goggles on last year for Kylan Hill too, honestly.
Yeah. I loved Kylan Hill. I was this is a gold mine. I did a couple rookie drafts ahead, took him in the 2nd round. And then after the draft, I was
nah.
Yep. Yeah. So that happened.
Fantasy Pros does have Kevin Harris at RB22 overall in their prospect ranking.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, he's a little low. But again, the gem possible pick for sure.
Yeah, maybe he's Elijah Mitchell.
Someone always appears.
Going to get burned again. That's all. Whatever.
Well, maybe it's Brian Robinson Jr. who will prevail and win some hearts in fantasy. But he had 271 carries for 1,343 yards, 14 touchdowns, 35 receptions for 296 yards, 2 touchdowns. 6'2", 225 pounds, 40-yard dash, 4.53. Jeremy has him outside the top 10. Steve has him in the top 5. Jeremy, I'll let you have the first word on this. Like, I'm looking at this statistics, like, it looks like a stud to me. Like, how can you not have him, like, within, like, a top 10, so to say?
So I see Brian Robinson as a strictly 2-down running back. I think that he is kind of clunky when he runs. He has some elusiveness. He's a little bit like not super clunky. Like he's not like, but like he just kind of like never looks like he's going that fast, and he never really breaks much. Like no real huge runs. There's a lot. I think a lot of what Kevin Harris did in his production is Alabama's offensive line. And I think he's a solid NFL running back. I just don't see for fantasy. I just don't see him producing. But he has the build, the size, and some of the traits to become a workhorse. So if he defies the odds of what I see, and he becomes like a workhorse back, there's definitely that ability that like he could be a gem in this draft. I just think that with what he does, he seems like that prototypical first, second down type running back. And I think he's going to fall into a role that he's like a spellback. I just don't think that he's going to get the draft capital or the right situation for him to be productive for fantasy. He has to land in like the Damian Harris role. He'd have to land like for a hypothetical, like a Buffalo or a Kansas City on a high powered offense that they're going to bring him in inside the 20 and just pound the rock and hopefully score a lot of touchdowns. That's where I see him having fantasy value personally. So if anybody thinks anything higher where he thinks they could be more like that Nick Chubb role where he's the feature first, second down guy, where he could get a lot more yardage and then also score the touchdowns, then I could see that argument, but I just don't see him becoming that guy for the NFL.
Okay, Steve, I need you to hit a nice, thorough point because I need to grab my laptop charger. So the floor is yours, buddy.
Thanks, Chips. Thanks. So, I get, Jeremy, I get your concerns with him because my number one concern was his explosiveness. There's definitely something that was missing there. And I'm not trying to talk negative on my number 5 RB, but to me, it's just his overall build, the 6'2", the 225, he reminds me of an NFL running back. And there's definitely issues to his game. He needs to be put into the situation. He needs to be able to work. When he goes to the NFL, whatever team he lands with, and I think he could go as early as 3rd round, but he could also go as late as around 6 possibly. And if he gets there and he works hard to really like make it to the next level, there's some really good qualities to his game there. I mean, for one, his pass protection is pretty elite. Watching that, he was basically just almost like an extra lineman on the field. And again, pass protection sometimes helps NFL running backs get to that next level. He's someone who doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires. So he's a pretty fresh young guy that just needs to be worked. And if he gets into a role, like if he ends up with Atlanta, I'm not saying Atlanta's going to be a great destination for him, but he's someone that could probably see between 12 and 15 carries every single game. That's what he needs, though. He's not going to be someone that's only going to see, 8 to 10. He needs to have those carries. But if he gets those and he gets that opportunity, his talent could make him really good as an NFL running back and possibly even good for fantasy. He's going to run over He's going to run over defenders. He's someone who's got, I think, pretty solid vision going through the holes there. And he's a good short yardage guy. So he fits some traits that NFL teams do like in certain running backs. And again, it just depends on the scheme and everything like that, where he gets to the next level. And it's things like that presents the upside for me that he's my number 5 running back currently right now, because I think if it all happens, you're looking at a really good running back. But again, I get Jeremy's concern, especially in the pass catching ability. I don't know how much of that he's really going to do at the next level. If he can work on his game, I mean, there's potential for him. And that's the thing I really love about it.
Yeah. So, okay. And I could agree with that 100%. The potential's there. It definitely is. I don't know. I just don't. I know there's a lot of people that I respect that like him. So it's another guy, I really want to revisit this running back class because I did it first back in like December/January. And I feel like there's a lot of guys that have kind of risen up, like these size guys. Like Hassan Haskins is another one, like a guy that I didn't even really dive too much into, but like he's put up good numbers and there's a lot of people talking about him. And I'm like, all right, I got to like revisit his stuff because like where there's smoke, there's fire, you know? So I do really want to kind of see if I can find some things and see maybe I missed, you know, like some of these guys that I have ahead of these guys might not be as good as I think as well too. So
oof. I just noticed like Hassan Haskins like name on the other running backs list, Steve. So like I'm gonna have to highlight him in a bit, but we're gonna get into Abram Smith. He had 257 carries for 1,601 yards, 12 touchdowns, 13 receptions, 75 yards, no receiving touchdowns. He's 6 foot, 213 pounds. He didn't run the 40-yard dash. Steve, you have him 7. Jeremy, you have him outside the top 10. I'm gonna let. Who wants to go first on this one?
I'll go first on this one. I'll be sure. I 100% understand why probably Jeremy has him outside his top 10. I get it. I mean, he's got literally 1 year production where he was, a junior year. He actually played linebacker. So I understand there's some concerns with his overall, experience at the position. I think he had like 7 carries as a running back, 12 carries his first 2 years as a running back. And there's definitely some issues, with his overall ability, his long speed, his physical runner. Can he be durable enough to be at the next level? But for me, there's just some really good upside that I love. And, the vision, the ability to identify the holes. He was a first-time running back that he saw the big workload and dominated. And, his ability to break off tackles. He can pass protect pretty well. The vision's there. And I think there's upside that's untapped, kind of like Brian Robinson in a different way, though. But that's kind of why I'm at 7, because I think there's untapped potential that could make him a really good running back. But there's definitely some flaws to his game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I will get behind that. That's kind of where I am. It's like 1 year production. I mean, he definitely dominated. He looked pretty good. Good vision, like you had said. The one thing that I feel like he's going to be kind of like the Antonio Gibson of this class, except without the receiving upside. So you're looking at him as prospects, and everybody's kind of like Antonio Gibson's like, okay, he's got talent. There's some stuff there, like he could become something. But Antonio Gibson was a little bit more leaning towards, okay, he's a really good receiver, like, but he did produce as a running back. Like, maybe okay. Where Abram Smith is like a pure rusher. He really doesn't have that passing upside, at least that we saw in college in the singular year. So for me, I just think that he's just so raw that like, what's it going to take? Can he establish this in a year and learn the NFL running back position? Do you know what I mean? Like there's raw traits there, and he looked good at times. I mean, he had over 1,000 yards after contact. Like, I mean, he was a monster as far as breaking tackles, like punishing players. I mean, he looked to run them over. He looked like a linebacker playing running back. You know what I mean? Like he has.
I actually can see that.
he has that ability to do that in his game, which the NFL will like. I do think that. I wonder if they're going to question his pure ability to play the game. Like, is it going to be able to translate to the NFL and like learn to process the game fast enough? And like he makes good cuts. He has good vision. It's not like he's terrible, but you could tell at times like he was raw, like he was new to the position. So how much does the NFL take that for granted? Like, are they going to be willing to give him a shot? And then the next question comes is, can he pick it up fast enough to be productive on a team and also maybe beat? Like, I also like factor in, okay, what positions are available to be had at the NFL level. Like, really, there's been an influx of youthful running backs, and like this position is pretty crowded. So like you're looking at guys that are going to be like committee guys. I feel like there's not really many teams that need a workhorse or are willing to give a workhorse load to a lot of these running backs. So like, what is he good at? He's a first, second down kind of runner. He doesn't have that passing upside. Like, what's his role going to be? And like you said, Steve, he could become a 3-down back. He has the size. He has the ability. Question is does he get it there? So for me, I just lean towards the guys who pass or maybe a little bit more pass catching when they're guys that I think might end up in a committee just because they're so touchdown dependent if you're a pure rusher to be like fantasy productive. Do you know what I mean? Like, or higher fantasy production.
He has a lot more doors in the way for his success, I believe, because like it's a big step going from college to NFL. You're playing with men who are probably the same speed and like the exact like same physique as you as well. So, he's another name we should watch out for. So if you guys are listening, we also have. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's just a nice target late. I don't think that no matter where he lands, he's not going to get like, oh, Atlanta took him in the first round, or like second round, not first round, Jesus. But like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not going to get this high rise, I think, in a rookie draft. So like, he's actually a really good target. Like, I might have him low, but like, I think he's a good target to try and come out of your rookie draft with. Like a third or fourth round target. I think he's great. Like Steve said, the untapped potential there. It's the Antonio Gibson effect, like where he might fall late in a draft and you might end up with a gem, Elijah Mitchell, something like that, So I would definitely, like you said, like get familiar with him, look up some of his tape. I'm sure you'll fall in love with him if you're listening. If not, sorry, you missed out.
You're definitely gonna miss out on that train. I'm gonna snag up all of them. But I believe this is player number 9. We have DeShawn Corbin. He's 143 carries. Oh, sorry. For 887 yards, 7 touchdowns, 25 receptions for 144 yards, 1 touchdown. He is 5'11", 202 pounds, and he ran a 4.74. That's not fast, guys. But Jeremy, you have him 8, and Steve, you have him outside your top 10.
You ran a 4.74?
That's what I saw.
Oof.
Yeah, oof is right. Like, I feel bad for number 5. He's probably not even going to get drafted if he can't catch him.
Hey. I thought it was a little better. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
That might change my mind. He might not be a date anymore. I thought he ran a little bit faster.
I'll look it up.
He ran a 4.74 at his pro day.
Oof.
Oh, my God.
Ugh. We could just skip over him if you want. I didn't realize it was that bad.
So Jeremy has updated his ranks to outside the top 10. If you guys are listening, Steve, you have the first word.
I'll be real quick with it. I have him at like 13 or like 13 right now. There's some good work. The 40 time definitely scares me, but there was some good things I saw on film overall. I mean, good physical contact. Somebody will fight for extra yards. He can cut. He's got decent. He's got some explosiveness to get to that next level. I mean, the 40 time doesn't show that, but there was things where there was like he kind of ran outside way too often, or like he could have just went up the middle, but instead he bounced off to the outside and maybe got 1 more yard, if that, or less, doing his when he ran. So, I mean, he's a decent RB. I mean, I didn't know about him until Jeremy put him in his top 10 originally, so I had to go back and actually find him because I was like, I didn't do any research on him. But he's okay. The 40 time is just a major turnoff for me.
Major turnoff for me. But it's crazy because he runs away from guys on film. Like if you watch it, like he has some breakaway runs. Like he breaks it outside or he cuts it back up and he hits a cutback lane and he outruns some angles. Like the 4.7. I wonder if something happened that like an injury or he like kind of pulled up. I don't really know. I didn't see that he ran that 4.7 at his pro day. Eef. I mean, overall, what I liked is like there is like the good vision, the bouncing off. I thought he ran away from people on film. So like that's where I was like, I thought that there was a lot of potential and untapped potential here on the Florida State offense. Like he is a good pass catcher as well. So like I just saw a lot of untapped potential that he wasn't able to produce because it was Florida State. Nothing against Florida State, but like they ain't great. So I just like there was nice things that I saw, but like now knowing he ran a 4.7, like that's going to be pretty bad for him as far as draft capital goes in general, unless something comes out or an NFL team figures out that like maybe he, had a slight injury or something. But, man, I don't know. He's probably going to drop outside my top 10, knowing that he ran that 4.7 now. But I don't know. There's some untapped potential. Another late round guy, 4th round. I would take a flyer on him.
Oh, we have our last guy, number 10, Tyler Algiere. Oh, guys, I'm gonna let you go. He ran a slightly better 40 time, but 276 carries for 1,600 yards, 23 touchdowns, 28 receptions, 199 yards. He's 5'11", 224 pounds. 40-yard dash is a 4.6. Jeremy has him 9. Steve has him somewhere outside the top 10. This guy looks like a baller to me, like statistical, but Steve, why aren't you sold on him?
I mean, I'll tell you right now, Fantasy Pros has him at 10, but I'm at like 20. I mean, the size is there. There's some good traits about him for me, but I mean, there's not much route running. There's no explosiveness when I saw on film. I know he's dealt with fumbles when he did see that increased workload, and he's got that nice frame where it looked like he could just run over people, but it seemed like too often than not while watching film, he, had a one-on-one opportunity and then got tackled. So I just don't know if he's really going to be someone that will translate to the NFL as well as I would hope. Other people obviously think, but I didn't like what I saw on the film when it came to his game.
Yeah, I think for me, Tyler Algiere, I believe the 4.6. Like I saw that 4.6 seems about right. Like he isn't super fast. He reminds me a lot of David Montgomery. Like he isn't gonna run away from you. He isn't super bursty like Steve said, but he has enough that like he gets you those 5-10 yards. He was able to produce more at BYU just because of the level of competition. They played some better teams, but like they weren't playing the Alabamas every single week. We're playing in the SEC, so like the 4.6 was enough for him to be able to produce pretty good numbers there. But like Steve said, what he does nicely though is that he's not necessarily running guys over, but he does well at making himself small enough in holes. Like he does lower the pad level really well, and he almost like creates this where players bounce off him. He doesn't necessarily like blow anybody over, but like he does well at like getting small, lowering his pads, making that target area for a tackler small. And that helps him through holes. He isn't like super elusive. He has a little bit in like the open field, but he kind of is like what Steve said. I mean, he'll run through guys, but like he doesn't run through them and then like pick up 20 yards. Like he kind of gets a yard or two. He might drag him a little bit. But statistically, it was surprising. I mean, he had over 1,100 yards after contact, 1,143 to be exact in 2021, with 76 forced missed tackles. So, I mean, on film necessarily, sometimes it doesn't look like he did, but like the numbers are there to prove that like he was pretty hard to bring down. But like I said, I mean, he only had 593 breakaway yards, which is like 40% of his yardage. So like he didn't have he wasn't explosive to the fact where he was like breaking all these big runs. It kind of was like I said, that David Montgomery, 10, 15, just popping them off 5 yards, just kind of a solid running back, but nothing that's going to be like, holy cow, he just bursted a 90-yard breakaway run, So that's where I think he gets his knock, is just that lack of speed.
Ain't nothing bad with that. Can't teach speed though. And then we have Tyler Beatty.
Yep.
He has 268 carries for 1,604 yards, 14 touchdowns, 54 receptions, 334 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's 5'8", 197 pounds, 4.45 40. This is Jeremy's 10th person on his running back rankings, and Steve, this is another person outside your top 10. And Jeremy, you want a quick word on Tyler?
Yeah. So fun fact, I do believe, and I could be wrong, but I think he did lead the SEC in rushing last year. So he was, the big knock for me with him is size. He's purely under 200 pounds. He's under 6 foot. And that's going to be his biggest knock for anybody, I feel like. Other than that, like he's a pretty powerful runner for his size. He finally got a chance to really be the guy at Missouri once Larry Roundtree moved on. But in that time frame, he also was a very good receiver. Like, I mean, he had 54 receptions last year. He had 32 in 2019, 28 in 2020. Like, he is a versatile back. I think he has the ability, like, he's put on film that he can be a 3-down back. The issue is size. And I think that's going to be his biggest knock and his hardest thing to overcome at the NFL level. If he can prove that the size isn't the end of the world, I think he has the ability to be very productive. But I see his ceiling is like a Boston Scott, like maybe James White type role. I just don't see him because of his size. He's never going to be a lead guy, but I think that he has the PPR upside because of how good he is as a receiver, and his ability to step in if he had to have like a couple carries here or there, get 5 or so in a game. Even JD McKissic. Honestly, JD McKissic is probably a good comp for him as his upside to what he would be for fantasy. Just a really good PPR back that's used in that role in the right landing spot. Like, I would love him to land in Vegas. Like, that's my hope. In McDaniel's offense, he could be his new James White paired with Josh Jacobs. I think that would be a good fit for him, and I would love it. I would definitely be in on Tyler Beatty there.
What you got from me, Steve?
I mean, Jeremy kind of hit all the big points on it. To me, he kind of reminds me of like a poor man's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Definitely has great hands. He has, for his size, good, speed. Kind of what we were talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, kind of a guy who could maybe run over a defender, but like at the next level, I just don't. And we've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his similar frame and size, a little bit bigger, but kind of not really translate very well at that next level there, where he has an opportunity if he gets in the right system, but if he doesn't, it could be a really quick exit for a guy like Tyler Beatty. But I liked what I watched on film. I think he's like 16 for me, but it all just depends on where he ends up at that next level.
Quite understandable. And I think like this is the big thing, you're seeing it here with Steve and even just me, like this running back class is so like wide open after the top 3 that like you're going to see this amongst all these lists. Like Steve had mentioned, Fantasy Pros had Tyler Algiere at 10 and then like Kevin Harris at 22, like, and then Steve had Kevin Harris really low. He had Tyler Algiere pretty high or mediocrely there. Like there's just such a disparity depending on what you like as a running back. Do you know what I mean? Like when you list it, like, Do you prefer the talent that's there? Like Tyler Beatty, like a ton of talent. He's put it on tape, but like he's really small. And we've seen that not translate. Like you said, Steve, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You see it like Jared Patterson last year. Very productive back out of the MAC, undersized. Yeah, he got a chance in Washington, but like he wasn't really anything. Like, is he still going to be? He could still have a potential, but like we've seen it where these guys don't succeed. So it's like, and then you see a guy like Brian Robinson, or Jerome Ford. We'll use him. He's a little faster. Jerome Ford could definitely be Elijah Mitchell this year. Like on film, sometimes like you're like, but then like he gets in a situation, perfect spot, gets that opportunity, gets a good coach, boom. He's very valuable fantasy asset. So it's just a very open running back field, in my opinion. That's all.
I believe this is the last guy, guys. Jurion Ely, 133 yards, 768 yards, 133 carries, 768 yards, 5 touchdowns, 32 receptions, 218 yards, 2 touchdowns receiving, 5'8", 189 yards, a 4.52 40-yard dash. Steve, he's your guy. He's your last guy in the top 10. Tell me why.
Yeah, I mean, early, I liked what I watched on film with him. He kind of reminds me of Tyler Beatty a little bit there. I think he's a better overall runner for his, his size there. I mean, they're both the same height. So, I mean, it's funny that our last guys are guys who are 5'8", basically my height. But he was someone, I think his footwork is his top tier. He's someone who could, very impressive, his lateral ability, explosive, fights off tackles, someone who is patient enough in the backfield to find the holes. And again, he can be an effective but pass catcher like Tyler Beatty. But I think his running ability, just gives me a knock ahead of him personally. And it's kind of why I have him there. Again, he's all right. He's solid. Again, these running backs at this point are kind of, there's goods and there's bads about him. But I liked what I saw on film enough that maybe it could translate to the next level.
Yeah, I like exactly what you said. I think just Jurion Ely is just so undersized. I worry about that. But on tape, you watch it. I mean, you could argue he's a top 5 back in this class. Like he just looks so good at Ole Miss. Just for me, my big knock is just size. That's why I have him. And to be fair, so I have mine broken into tiers, and yeah, he's outside the top 10. But like he's basically in the same tier as like all these guys we've talked about, like Corbin, Algiere, Beatty, Ford, Robinson, Ely. Like they're all in the same tier for me. They're just like that's how I had him organized. You know what I mean? So the size comes to the factor, and that's why I have Ely outside the 10. And I loved it on tape. Like, I was like, oh my God. Like, when I first watched him, I'm like, oh, this guy is going to be like, he might be a sleeper in this class. And then, like, he got weighed in, like, and I'm just kind of like, he just seems so small that unless he lands in the perfect spot to be like a spell back and maybe used on third down for like a pass catching guy, I just don't know if he's going to be able to hold up in the NFL. And that's my only worry on him. Other than that, I think Steve hit it on the nail. And like I said, I mean, put his tape on and you'll be surprised at why people have him so low. Like, he just pops. He just looks great on film, honestly.
Okay. I'm going to keep an eye on both those, him and Beatty. Little two scat backs. But, I guess. Sleeper of the class guy. Jeremy's is Tyler Goodson. And Coach Steve is Max Borge.
Borge, yeah, that's how I say it.
Borge, okay. Do you guys want to say anything on those two fellows?
I'll be real quick with mine. Max Borge, I mean, he's definitely deep. He's definitely a deep sleeper for me, honestly. But his pass catching ability, I mean, 800 yards this year, 86 receptions. I mean, that's just something that for me, I just can't overlook at the next level. If he lands in the right situation, he's likely going to be an undrafted running back that if he sticks at the right team, aka like the Patriots, I feel like he's the perfect kind of Patriot kind of running back here. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up there. He could end up maybe doing something at some point, kind of like what Rex Burkhead did in his career, maybe a little bit more. But he's definitely, for me, it's just a deep sleeper kind of guy.
I like the Rex Burkhead call.
Thank you.
I like that for him. He's a guy that I thought was going to be a little higher in this class, but like kind of fell off. I remember a couple of years ago hearing about him. But yeah, Tyler Goodson, I just like another guy, 5'9", under 200 pounds. He kind of just another one of those kind of like scat back type guys. I just really like what he brought at Iowa. He looked impressive. And I did a little bit of research on the background. Like, he's just a really hard worker. And like, I feel like if anybody, I just feel like there could be a chance for him to become in the right situation, possibly a lead back. I know he's a little undersized, but I think that there's a good frame there to him. And he looked more powerful than what his size leads on. So there's a lot that I like about him, but I think there's a lot of sleepers in this class, and it was hard for me to pick one. And I've kind of just been on Tyler Goodson as of late. I just like what I saw on tape. He looked explosive, powerful, good vision, and I just liked it. So I'm going to kind of stick to him, late guy. But by the sounds of it, DeShawn Corbin is going to be pretty late, so he could arguably be the sleeper now. Probably going to slide him down now, knowing that he ran a 4.7. Jesus Christ. I could probably run a 4.7. Not really, but, you know.
Oh, my God. Oh, me too. But other running backs you probably heard throughout the show's duration that we would like to mention is Kyron Williams, Hassan Haskins, Damian Pierce, Ty Chandler, Pierre Strong Jr., Kennedy Brooks, Zovian Knight.
So with this last slide here, guys, I kind of just threw these running backs on here that are being mentioned a lot in the and a lot of analysts, podcasts, and things like that. You know, I know Kyron Williams was a big shot before the combine. Jeremy already mentioned Haskins before. Damian Pierce is really high up there. I'm not really understanding why. If he reminds me of Tyler Algiere. Damian Pierce. Ty Chandler has been rising up since the Senior Bowl. Pierce Strong was a name that a lot of people keep on mentioning as a sleeper type. I'm a kind of a fan of Kennedy Brooks in general. His running style is pretty interesting. And I know Xavier Knight is definitely someone also who's being thrown up there in a sleeper status, who's rising. I just wanted to mention some of those. I don't know, Jeremy, if you have anything you want to say about anyone real quick. Or
yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of good things like NFL side from Haskins. Pierre Strong really rose after the combine with that real fast 40. And Savannah Knight is another one that there's been some pretty good talks, like NFL wise, of teams kind of liking his game. I don't think fantasy wise he's really going to be anything. He kind of seems like a fill in, like a high end handcuff at the day's end. But he could become something. And I agree with you, Damian Pierce, I'm not too high on. But definitely watch Ty Chandler too. Like you said, I've heard a lot of good things from him. I'm going to go back and watch a little bit of more of his tape, but like, I think he's a little bit bigger guy. has some receiving upside and looked pretty good at UNC from what I remember. So definitely a class that I would take some flyers like in the 3rd, 4th round of these rookie drafts. Like I'm going to be heavy on running backs just because the wide receiver class, I feel like falls off way more. And some of these running backs have good size, good traits that like you could end up with that Elijah Mitchell, from last year. So, or something that sticks. That's just like a good fantasy production guy.
Oh, I 100% agree with that, honestly. All right, Jibs, wrap us up, buddy.
All right. Well, that's going to conclude our rookie running backs episode, guys. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy. You can also visit the website at www.thefantasycoaches.com, where you can find our articles, our rankings, some trades that happen in our leagues on a frequency, and many other things. Also, Jeremy, where can they follow you at?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. Any written work is at FTN Sports Gambling Podcast. A little bit over at Yards Per. And yeah, that's it. My podcast is kind of on a hiatus, so you can't find me there. If you do, it's old.
Lord. Well, hopefully they'll get that back up and running soon. But anything else you would like to say, Coach Steve, before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, this was a good episode. Hopefully you guys got a lot of great information out of it. I think we all got some good information out of each other on this, which is always fun to do, honestly. I know it's always fun bouncing ideas and knowledge and things that we see in other running backs that people might not see. So it's always good to see that. But Jibs, great show, buddy. Way to job at hosting, brother. So finish us off here.
And like that, we gone.